Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Mason was stuck in traffic for the second hour. He was supposed to be at a birthday party for an investor half an hour ago. Drove straight from the clinic. Didn't even stop home to change. Miranda's wife called every 10 minutes to remind him not to be late, but he was. Such a terrible traffic jam was not part of the plan. It's unclear what happened there. The cars were standing dead. Every 5 minutes they'd move a meter and then stop again. All the cars behind, in front, on the side were already considered, and the drivers could be considered familiar. That car overtook by half a meter and now lagged behind by 1.5 meters. What kind of fun is that? In front, an old man in a Ford, some sticks with red rags on the ends sticking out of the trunk. On the left is a girl in an Audi, always talking on the phone and occasionally glancing at Mason with interest. On the right, the most desperate or the most brazen occasionally fly by on the side of the road. What's ahead of them is unknown. Mason wouldn't be nervous at all. Well, a traffic jam and a traffic jam. Finally able to rest, but imagined what Miranda would tell him when he arrived. Well, if he did. It's the wife calling again. "Where are you?" "I don't know what to say anymore. Everyone's here asking about you. Don't you realize how important it is for you to be here?" "I don't really understand the importance, and I don't understand what I'm doing there either. But I'm going. I can't fly over this traffic. Can't or won't. Miranda, I'll be there as soon as I can." Mason dropped the call. He doesn't need this reception. Let the investors talk to the clinic management. Why invite the department heads? What's the joy of celebrating a birthday in a crowd of people you don't know? Mason saw this investor once at the clinic. All of a sudden, he's so honored to be invited, and with his wife. He would have preferred to go home, spend a quiet evening, finally read 2 interesting articles sent to him a month ago. Instead, he goes to some party where he has to keep a straight face and socialize with uninteresting people. He's also indecently late. Miranda, unlike her husband, was glad of the invitation. She rarely got to attend receptions of this caliber. Or did she not want to look at others as much as she wanted to show herself? She realized that no one in this high society was interested in a school teacher herself. But she is with her husband, and this husband, damn him to hell, cannot get there. But those who ride on the side of the road go somewhere, don't they? Why don't you try it? Mason pulled off to the side of the road, rode the potholes for 500 miles, and got stuck in traffic again. Now on the side of the road. The curb ended, and the only way to get through was on the road. And those who patiently stood in a row were not in a hurry to let those who liked freebies through. They wanted to cheat fate. So stand there now, and in another half hour, Mason was back in the lane. Ahead of him was a Ford with sticks and red rags. What he left was what he came back to. It's ironic. Looks like he's only coming to the appointment to pick up his wife. That's fine. It's a shame about the time, though. We're finally getting going. And soon the cause of the traffic jam became clear. A terrible accident, 3 cars and 1 truck. Rescuers from the cars were scrambling around, pulling people out. Broken cars, machinery, as scrap metal moved to the curb, freed 1 lane for traffic. Drivers cautiously detoured around the crash site. Mason saw the wrecked cars of rescuers and ambulance doctors. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a man sitting on the ground near the truck's tire, a man with a crazed look, clearly in shock, and swerved toward the accident. A lifeguard immediately ran up to him. "Get back on the road. This isn't a circus. I'm a trauma doctor." "Well, and go ahead and do your job." There were 10 victims. all with serious injuries. The guy was badly hurt. His spine was severed, and a young woman who rescue workers couldn't get out of the car for a long time. Her 3-year-old daughter, scared and crying, was examined in the ambulance. Doctors dealt with the heaviest. The others with fractures and injuries were waiting their turn. That's who Mason took care of. The ambulances were leaving, taking out the injured, and others were coming in to replace them. Everything that needed to be done was done. There was nothing more Mason could do. Called the clinic. Prepped the OR. They're bringing in a spinal injury. I'll be right there. Before he left, he approached the truck driver who was still sitting by the tire. He was sedated. He's got a clearer look in his eyes. Any injuries? Need any help? No, it's my fault, doctor. What's gonna happen to me now? Not my question. You, boy, pray to God that everyone lives. He never made it to his appointment. He didn't answer his wife's calls. He spent half the night dealing with the injured guy, passed out right in the office, and in the morning began the usual, endless hospital business. I didn't get home until the evening. Miranda had cooled down a bit during the day. If her husband had arrived in the morning, she would have thrown a scandal, not at all in the tradition of their intelligent family. How many times? She realized Mason wasn't just a good doctor. He was a first-rate specialist with a name and credibility. He works hard, takes on the most difficult cases, and manages to lecture. He's got time for everything except his wife. They do not go on vacation, do not spend weekends together. Every evening spent at home is like a copybook. He arrived, had dinner, tried to read some article in a scientific journal, and without finishing, fell asleep. That was it. Miranda did not remember when and what they talked about. There was no time, nothing to talk about. Most importantly, no desire. When their lives became separate and love was replaced by indifference. Miranda didn't remember. If she told Mason now that their marriage was cracking at the seams and their life together was more like good neighborliness, he would be surprised. What was wrong? Is everything okay? Really fine. No scandals, no cheating, quite a secure, quiet life without troubles, without love, without happiness. The most unbearable thing is that it's impossible to forget how happy they were. Miranda, a young, only after the Institute, teacher with enthusiasm took up the education of the younger generation in a separate school, where she was sent by the teachers of English. She sacredly believed that the power of words can protect students from bad deeds. The main thing is to explain correctly what is good and what is bad. The beautiful impulses of her soul touched her students. They agreed not to upset Miranda. They only seemed to take patronage over the young idealist. They were sure they, in their 13 years about life, know much more than their naive Miranda. All the class went on hikes, to screenings of movie novelties, went to a skating rink or a beach volleyball tournament. In this way, in mutual illusions, Miranda brought her class to graduation. Apparently, her pedagogical efforts were not in vain, because after graduation, the students did not disappear from her life. They congratulated her on her birthday and Christmas, came to her with their troubles and just to chat. Teachers with great experience and merit thought that such trusting relations with students were an indicator of professional unsuitability. Our business is to educate. To make friendly relations with students is the height of unprofessionalism. There is not enough soul and time for everyone. It's probably just envy. For some reason, they didn't come to them to pour their hearts out. That's where Miranda met Mason at school. He was 12 years older than her. A mature and confident man. His son went to that school, and one day, instead of Mom, Dad came to the parent-teacher conference, passionate about his work. Somewhat out of step with the canons of pedagogy, the teacher had caught Mason's eye. He'd been divorced for 3 years, no contact with his wife at all. The separation was too nasty, and he saw his son occasionally. This day he went to a parent-teacher conference for the first time in his life because the ex-wife suddenly called and went hysterical, demanded that he immediately drop all this fucking business and run to the school to save his son. From what to save, did not explain why she herself does not run, was, in general, understandable, was not able to. Mason understood that nothing terrible, most likely, did not happen, but went to school. Gotta stay on top of things. And suddenly Ethan really needs to be rescued. After the meeting, Mason approached Miranda. He really didn't understand why his wife was so hysterical. A C in physics, a conflict with a classmate. It's not a catastrophe. Normal school life. Unpleasant, sure, but no reason to declare a rescue mission. Miranda confirmed there's no problem. Ethan is a wonderful boy, a bit withdrawn, but kind and talented. Mason has already realized that she has everyone wonderful talented. She will justify the worst bully and find a lot of positive qualities in him. Amazing girl, there's not many of those left. Mason always came with flowers, gallant and courteous. Miranda's friend and history teacher Vanessa, in colors told how the teacher reacts to the fact that this pale moth, infantile girl, who does not belong in school, picked up such a groom. Our women are jealous. They can't talk about anything but you. For them, teacher and nun are synonyms. You can't have a teaching career if you've got a man, or rather, not like that. You got the wrong guy. If you picked up a freak and tortured yourself, but brought him into the world, yeah, and self-sufficient, independent will not appreciate your, and therefore their selfless labor. A happy, loved, prosperous woman, what can she teach her children? How will she prepare them for the rigors of life? Vanessa, you're twisting things around. Half of our teachers are married. There are married ones. There are no happy ones. How would you know? And why are they making you feel bad about it? Why don't they just be happy? Tell me, if I was going to marry a good, positive man, what would you say? I'd wish him happiness. Well, no one wished you happiness. They're all angry and wondering when he'll leave you. Come on, I'm not getting married. And you pull yourself together. Don't give them a reason to gloat. There's no turning back, is there? Miranda fell in love. So serious, so thorough, he even courted as if he had a plan. Everything clear. When, where, what time. It's understandable. It's a job, no free time. The fact that Mason was married didn't bother Miranda. It's odd if a man in his 40s had never been married. That's not what bothered him. He didn't want to hear from his ex-wife. It's odd to have been married for so many years. Son's 15 years old, and Mason never said a kind word about her. What happened between them? Why'd they get divorced? Mason told me he just told Miranda what he thought she needed to know. She'll never be in our lives. I wouldn't think about her at all, but there's a son. I've helped him and will continue to help him. I think you understand. He's a big, smart boy. He likes you. Don't worry, we're gonna be fine. It wasn't just fine. It was great. They took a little wedding trip. They rented a house on the coast in the Alps for a week. Sun, sea, mountains. And nobody but the two of them. Not because there was no one, just no one. Miranda looked at her husband, and in her head there was only one thought: how much I love you. How it happened that of all men on earth the best, the most extraordinary one was hers. She was ready to look at those gray and the most beautiful eyes in the world all day long. No one had ever been so happy. she began to seriously question her mental faculties, so dumbed down in part that she can't think of anything. Just her husband, love, happiness. All the following years, when suddenly a longing came, Miranda remembered a week of boundless and unconditional happiness, and it made her feel warm. She wanted so much to return to that place, to experience the same feelings, to remember how it was to be happy. For 7 years of their life together, she had never traveled anywhere with her husband. Love, of course, did not go anywhere, but became something ordinary, not causing the former delight. When he did not come to that ill-fated reception, Miranda, seriously offended, left alone among strangers. No one cared about her. The doctors at the clinic tried not to leave her alone, but everyone was in pairs. Everyone was a little uncomfortable, basically an intruder. When anyone looked at her, she seemed to be pitied, perplexed as to who she was, what she was doing here. She still hoped Mason would come. When he stopped answering his cell phone, Miranda called a cab and went home. She'd had enough of this embarrassment. At home, she stood in front of the mirror, a tall, slender woman in an elegant dress, with a beautiful and intelligent face looked back at her. She also felt sorry for this beauty. She cried. So much going, dreaming that everyone would appreciate their beautiful couple, would say compliments, and Mason would be proud of his wife. Instead of compliments, indifference, instead of a pleasant evening, longing and loneliness. And now she stands so beautiful, looking at herself and quietly crying that no one needs her beauty, not even her husband. Half the night she cried, half the day she was angry. Then she calmed down. She decided she had nothing to worry about, and now he'll come and explain everything. Mason came. Miranda waited. Nothing. No explanation, no apology. Didn't even ask how she spent the evening. Either he doesn't remember the damn reception, or he thinks it's nothing. Nothing to talk about. She's eating dinner, reading a magazine, about to fall asleep. Here Miranda couldn't stand it, went to her husband, pulled the magazine out of his hands, threw it on the floor, and looking into Mason's surprised eyes, asked, "Where did you go yesterday? Aren't you interested in how I had fun? You left me alone and now you won't even explain." "I had to go back to the clinic, Miranda. I was tired." Mason picked up a magazine from the floor and continued reading. And that's it. Amazing, such impenetrable indifference. It made me feel so bad. What could I do to get him to come out of his shell and show some feeling? Change? Die? I wonder if he'll notice or grumble that he's distracted from work again. Another sleepless night and the desperate loneliness of the morning. This morning was not good, not wise, at least not wiser than the evening. Not a single wise thought had sprung up overnight, what to do about her self-destructive personal life. Miranda decided to take the tried and tested route. We should go to Vanessa. She always had a way of setting things right. Vanessa's loyal friend was a huge fan of Mason's. She thought Miranda was crazy. She thought there were no other husbands like her. She'd know better from experience. She'd been married twice over the years and considered herself an expert on husbands, both her own and other people's. Her first husband was a painter, a musician, a poet. Basically, 3 in 1. Life with him was a holiday. It was exhilarating. Vanessa said it was mostly in her head. He was fun and unpredictable. An unrecognized talent, an underachieving bohemian, a boy who never grew up. Vanessa said her husband was like trained animals at the circus. He seems to be trained, but what to expect from him? It's unclear. And having had fun and tired of the lack of money, Vanessa went to the other extreme. The second husband was a boring middle-aged bureaucrat. Not young, not attractive, but with means and connections. The presence of a young and beautiful wife sharply raised his authority in the eyes of his colleagues. Therefore, he did not spare money for his doll. In addition, his wife is a school teacher, somehow out of status. So now Vanessa taught at the university. Everything would be all right, but Vanessa couldn't stand his boringness for long. She got divorced and received a good apartment in the center of the city as a payoff. Now she was in full chocolate and in active search of the next husband. Vanessa honestly thought her friend was lucky. Handsome, intelligent, and a great doctor. He doesn't bore, doesn't drink, doesn't cheat. What more could she ask for? She'd never had a love like Miranda's before. She was left to dream and envy. She showed up, darker than a cloud with weeping eyes. Why don't you live in peace? Vanessa, he doesn't notice me at all. If I disappear, he'll realize it when he can't find dinner. He doesn't always eat dinner at home, so he won't find me missing right away. He doesn't care about me at all. When I went to college, I consulted with him. I couldn't make up my mind, and he asked me a month ago how I was doing in school. Miranda, aren't you exaggerating? There's something about the nuts and bolts in my head that don't match up. This isn't about Mason. He's a reasonable man. Yeah, he's very passionate about his work, but that's good. Who's so busy working that they forget their wife when they're away? What do you think, woman? Not really. Although maybe it would be better. At least it would be clearer. You, girlfriend, don't take it out on your husband. He's tired. He'll come to his senses and everything will be fine. For men like your Mason, you'll have to look harder. What kind of man I'll put in the basket? Take to the forest, throw to the devil. Miranda wistfully advertised. Hey, girlfriend, where'd you pick that up? What kind of art is this? I'll take it out and throw it away. If you throw it out, they'll pick it up. Look, I really don't understand what's wrong with you. There's no such thing as crazy love for life. You've had it, but I haven't. 2 husbands and not one out of this world love. You're lucky, Miranda. Don't piss God off. Maybe you're right. What happened? Here I am again with my melancholy. You're welcome. My vest is always at your service. A few days later, all the news programs started with breaking news. There had been another earthquake. The country watched with bated breath the statistics of the dead and wounded. Rescuers and doctors from all over the country flew to Turkey. Mason was going to be part of one of the teams. Miranda, you understand, I can't not go. I'm needed there now. Don't worry, I'll be home in a week. Miranda watched the news like a bulletin from the front. Once she saw Mason in a story about doctors. Worried and called, he didn't always answer. My heart ached. Chased away the dark thoughts of what might happen. I mean, he stays out of the rubble, helps those who've already been hurt. Suddenly, there's another jolt. More dead and wounded. Mason hasn't called in 2 days, hasn't answered his cell phone. Finally, Mason calls. No, it's not Mason. It's an unfamiliar number. Yeah, I'm listening. Miranda? Yes. Your husband, Mason, was killed in the debris removal. We're very sorry for your loss. We're covering all transportation costs. They're taking what? What transportation? Are they talking about Mason? What do you mean, dead? Is everybody out of their minds? Miranda dialed and dialed Mason's number. He wasn't answering for some reason. I heard some kind of ringing in my ears, then some kind of rumbling. It was someone banging on the door. I got up, went to the door, stood looking at it, didn't know how to open it. Something unpleasant was said to me. I don't remember what. Who's banging on the door like that? There's a bell. Miranda opened it. Behind the door stood Mason's colleagues, doctors from the clinic. So they're here. Mason's not home. There was no birthday party either. Suddenly, it rang clearly in her head. Dead. Condolences. Miranda didn't remember anything else. She woke up when the coffin was lowered into the grave, screamed, rushed, was held, struggled in someone's arms, and screamed. The next thing was foggy again. Like Vanessa, like Ethan saying something, feeding her something. When I came to, I was surprised I was alive. No, not surprised. I was upset. Why alive? Vanessa, like a guardian angel, always stood behind me and did not let me fall into the abyss, calming, persuading, drawing prospects, pushing me to action. In short, after a couple of months, you could talk to Miranda without fear of going crazy. To be honest, Vanessa hadn't expected Miranda to be so disturbed. Understandably, a loved one had died, but to be thrown out of her life like that. Vanessa looked after Miranda herself. Miranda recovered, went back to her normal life. It's dreary, but it's manageable. Gone are the thoughts, I can't live without him. I can. At least I'm trying. Things have settled down. I cried at night. Sometimes I forgot to suffer during the day. Then I remembered, but I didn't suffer so much. It was almost 6 months after Mason's death when Vanessa suddenly asked, "Miranda, did you apply for inheritance? What application? Why?" Actually, your husband had property, at least this apartment. By the way, whose apartment is it? Mason. Here. And he has a son, Hare. The ex-wife can't claim, but the son can. I suspect that you and Ethan will have to share the apartment, and if you don't enter the inheritance, there will be nothing to share. So run to the notary tomorrow with the documents. That doesn't make any sense. It never occurred to Miranda that she would have to share the apartment she had lived in for so many years. She was used to considering it her own. Only now, after Vanessa's words, she realized that it wasn't. She was registered here. She could not be expelled, but it was not her apartment. The notary turned out to be a young girl with stern eyes and not a solid ponytail on top of her head. She looked at the documents, accepted Miranda's application, and explained that Miranda would inherit half of the apartment, half of the car, and half of the dacha by law. She advised to make an agreement with the second Hare, Ethan. How to divide it all? Who gets the car? Who gets the dacha? Who gets the apartment? Miranda was ready to give up the car and the cottage if they gave her the apartment. She simply had nowhere to live. Ethan probably wouldn't mind, but his mom was still there. Some weird message came through. Land and property tax arrears. Miranda thought at first it was for the cottage and apartment, but why in her name? All-knowing Vanessa advised to go to the registry and find out what kind of tricks. Oh, Miranda, I'm having second thoughts. This is not good. The doorbell rang. Miranda said a quick goodbye to James and went to answer the door. Standing outside the door was a not-quite-sober woman with permanent undyed hair. Shaking her red curls, without waiting for an invitation, she entered the apartment and went room by room. "Who are you?" "I'm Pooh." "Who are you?" "My son, the landlord. I want to live with my son." "You don't have kids. You wouldn't understand, but I'll live with my son." "But Ethan only owns half of the apartment. The other half is mine." "Great. We'll live together, except roommates. How are we going to divide the rooms?" "Look, you can't be serious. We can't live in the same apartment, can we?" "I wouldn't want to. But if you don't go, we'll have to. You think about it, and I'll bring my stuff the day after tomorrow." "Well, bye. What do we do now? What do you do in a situation like this?" "Run to a friend?" So Miranda ran. On the way to the little house, Ethan called and asked her to come over. I wanted to know if the idea of living together was her mom's fantasy or their decision. Ethan was not reassured. The decision to squeeze Miranda out of the apartment, Mason's revenge, albeit belated. Ethan had talked his mom down, offered her options. She wouldn't listen. It's not so much the apartment as the desire to show her power. She wouldn't back down. She'd ruin her life any way she could. Ethan left, and the girlfriends were left to grieve. Miranda, why don't you buy half the apartment from her? If there's not enough money, I'll add to it. I'm afraid she won't sell. It's important to humiliate me. She dreams of humiliating me, ruining my life. She won't take money for such a pleasure. Ethan realizes that it's impossible to live like this, but she can't do anything. She has the idea to move in with me. It's fun and revenge for a miserable life. You should have seen her. She's got an ambition to kill me, and she's not going to give up that kind of joy. Look, is she crazy? Is she really going to live with her ex-husband's widow? Looks like it. Move in with me for a while, then you'll have to do something about the apartment, sell it, split it up. I don't know what. Of course, you're on the prowl, and I'm just running around here. No, girlfriend, I'm not my enemy. I don't want to be without a friend. Who do you want to stay with? With that crazy woman in the same apartment? Are you seriously considering that? No, of course not. I have an unfinished palace. I'll go and see it. Where? In the country. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing like that. I only look 200 miles away. I've got to get my mind right. I'll go, I'll think, I'll come to my senses, and I'll decide how to move on. Vanessa, I feel like I need this. If I don't try to start over, I'm gonna die. I don't know. Maybe it will work. It seems like the decision has been made, but it's so scary to change the established, stable life on the incomprehensible prospect of life in the village where I've never been. But then some builders showed up, measured the height of the opening, and asked about the load-bearing walls. Clearly some grandiose renovation was in progress. Woman, are you registered here? Well, live here. No one is forcing you out, and we have an order. Miranda quickly put her things in her bag and rushed to the bus station. Didn't wait for the red-haired vigilante to show up. Enough with the nerves. Though in the coup at the cashier's office, I suddenly remembered that I had a car. I'd been kicked out of my apartment, so at least I could get my car. I didn't doubt that they would sue her for the car. They wouldn't deny themselves such a pleasure. But for now, it was possible to get to the village. Where I'm going? Why, how will I live? Okay, I'll get there. I'll figure it out. Strange village. Not a lantern, not a light. The time is 21 o'clock, and the village is dead. Either they're asleep, or there's no light. So where to next? Where's the Crown Estate? Yeah, there's people here. Apparently, cars are rare here. We crawled out to see if they'd tell us where to go. They did, but they were wary. What kind of a lady comes here at night? The lights are really out. There must be a candle somewhere, but how can you find it here? I shined the flashlight on my phone, found a bed, and went to sleep. I'll figure it out tomorrow. I was hungry, so I ate all the livers I had on the road. I'm going to sleep. There's nothing else. Miranda was sleepy and didn't realize where she was. I guess the countryside. There's no light, but there's a manor house. I have to look around. I'm also very hungry. Is there a store here? Miranda's house was impressive. Nice furniture, big windows, curtains, dishes, fridge, TV, everything. You could see Mason really wanted to live here, all thoughtfully and lovingly arranged. He didn't tell her anything, but he made it look like he consulted her. Miranda wouldn't change a thing about the house. She loved it. The house was abandoned and unkept, but that could be fixed. She stepped out onto the porch. It was beautiful, a real garden. Lilacs blooming, apple trees in pink buds, some bushes, the names of which Miranda did not know. Raspberries sprawled without supervision, growing all over the plot. Under the apple tree in a thicket of burdock stands a table. From a branch, hanging from a rope swing, the ropes are almost rotten. Behind the house, impassable cherry bushes, a solid white wall. Then I'll have to climb the plot to see what else grows here. But now it's not about flowers and berries. I have to find a store and buy groceries because I'm dizzy with hunger. There was salt, sugar, macaroni, a pack of tea, and a bottle of sunflower oil in the refrigerator, which was turned off, probably hidden from the mice. Miranda took out the groceries, turned on the refrigerator, and went to look for the store. From behind a neighboring fence, a woman of about 60 years old looked at her with curiosity, came closer and asked, "Daughter, who are you going to be?" The house was empty. I saw someone walking around the yard today. The owner, Mason, is here, a doctor from the city. Are you his wife? Widow. It was the first time Miranda had ever said that word out loud. It was harsh, hard, hopeless. Divided life into before and after. "Oh, I'm sorry, old fool, minding my own business. My name is Aunt Clara, and I'm Miranda. Can you tell me where your store is? Just down the street. You'll reach the center. There's a store, a school, and the administration. If you need anything, you can come to me." "Come on in." "Thanks, Aunt Clara." Miranda walked down the street, looking at the village. It was interesting and completely different from her idea of rural life. Once, while still studying at the institute, she had gone to visit her friend Adriana. It was her first and only experience of village life. Since then, Miranda was sure that the village was dusty streets with wilted grass, old, ramshackle houses, vegetable gardens with potatoes and cucumbers, and certainly no decorations in the form of flowers and ornamental bushes. A village is poverty, lack of amenities, and hard work. It's no place for flowers, whether that village was in the middle of nowhere or whether things had changed dramatically over time. But now Miranda was pleasantly surprised. There were good houses in the village, a well-tended front garden in front of each yard. Even the streets were not gray and dusty, but green with flowering trees and bushes. The appearance of a new person in the village is an event. As we walked to the store, curious eyes peered out from behind every fence. About 15 times Miranda said hello and explained who she was. Vigilance in the village was at an all-time high. No one would pass unnoticed. Somehow the rumors made it to the store before Miranda. About 10 people came to see the townie. The store was full. No one bought anything. They didn't come for the same reason. They waited, wondering why they came and how long they could hold out. They're not mean people, but they're wary of anything new. They've all studied their own people. It's clear what to expect from whom. This one will give his last shirt. That one's greedy. This one rushes to help everyone. That one's a slacker. But these are all their own relatives, and here we don't know what's arrived. They say she's young and beautiful. Problems too. There are only 3 single men in the village. They don't have enough, and here's a competitor. They looked at Miranda, frankly and appraisingly. They began to ask questions cautiously. "Are you coming to us for a long time? Or just for a week's rest?" "No, not a week. I'll stay here. But I don't know how long." "What are you going to do?" "You're probably a manager or a designer." "You don't know how to work with your hands in the city." "Not really. I'm a teacher." "That's good. We have a big school. We need teachers." but it's hard to live in the countryside. In winter, it gets so snowy you can't leave the house. It's good that we have gas and don't need to heat stoves. And you can't live here without a vegetable garden. They don't bring vegetables here. Aunt Lisa, don't scare the man. Why are you attacking him? A saleswoman stood up for Miranda. I don't bring vegetables. You won't buy them, but I'll bring them if I have to. Who eats these store-bought vegetables? Are we not going to share cucumbers and tomatoes? Come to my place. I still have some potatoes and carrots left. I'll give you some. Thank you. Ladies, do you want to buy anything? If not, go with God. It's a hobby club. Miranda got the groceries. It's a little heavy. And I need a bucket, a mop, dishwashing detergent, window cleaner, and a few other little things. I can't carry everything. You're gonna clean up? Yeah, the house has been closed up since last summer, and it's been filthy. Let's do it this way. You take what you need now, and the rest, along with everything else you need for cleaning, I'll be back in a couple hours. My fiance's here. He's taking me home for dinner. We'll load everything up, and I'll come and help you after work. You'll be cleaning this house for a week. My name's Nancy, by the way. It's embarrassing. Come on. I'm curious to know what kind of bird you are. Let's get to know each other. Oh, I don't have to tell Miranda. The whole village knows. Miranda came out of the store, took a look around. There's a school. You can see the boys running around in the yard, whether it's gymnastics or some kind of training. I'll have to go in and see what vacancies they have. Maybe we really do have to stay here. So where do we start our new life? We should make some food. No, sandwiches and tea first, then cooking, or I'll drool. After Miranda's sandwich, everything seemed fine. Life was getting better. Nancy's bringing in some chemicals. The first thing to do is to clean the windows to get some sun and shine. Miranda looked around the house meticulously. She hadn't had time to do that in the morning. Gray furniture, dim windows, dusty curtains. If everything washed, it would be cozy. Where's Nancy? I can't wait. Nancy arrived as promised with her fiancé, a handsome, smiling blonde. He may not have been a groom, but he was interested, looking interested, clearly trying to please Nancy. His name was Benjamin. We're all going. Benjamin has to go to work. Nancy pushed the groom to the door. I'll pick up the monkey from the garden tonight and come over. What monkey? But Nancy was already running to the car. The monkey was a little red-haired girl named Betty, Nancy's daughter. With the helpers, it went faster, and in the course of the evening they had cleaned almost the whole house. Just a few little things left to do. Tired, but encouraged by the result, sat down to drink tea. But the monkey didn't finish his tea. He fell asleep. Nancy, who's Benjamin, they say there's only 3 bachelors here, and one of the 3 was killed. You should have seen those bachelors. Nancy laughed. The most eligible is Uncle Sebastian. He's about 60 years old. You'll never get anywhere here. He's been courting your neighbor Aunt Clara for about 30 of his 60 years. For as long as I can remember, he's been a suitor, and he's never decided to propose. And the second bachelor is not looked at even by the most stale girls. 40-year-old Nikolai studied in Washington. They say he's a computer genius, works from home, lives with his mom, doesn't go anywhere, doesn't talk to anyone. His mom tells me he was married. The village doesn't believe it. Someone considers him abnormal, but all agree that he is unsuitable for socializing and even more so for marriage. The third bachelor is a dark horse, but according to Clara, a very interesting man. 2 years ago, a man came to the village with a teenage daughter. Everyone assumed he was a former athlete. First of all, he looked like that, strong, trim. Secondly, having settled in the village, he came to the school director and proposed to open a boxing section. The principal was not against it. It was a good idea, but not feasible. The school gym had not been working for several years. There was no money for repairs. The hall was almost in disrepair. Physical education lessons were held outside in the summer, running and soccer, and winter skiing. Then David, the athlete's name, disappeared from the village for a while. Then he came back with a decision to fund the renovation of the gym and a coaching position. That's when it turned out that David, a 3-time boxing champion, lives in their village. True, he hasn't been competing for a long time. He refused to participate in the World Championship. Why doesn't anyone know? How did he end up in the village? Also a mystery, but all the local signs said there was a woman involved. His daughter didn't talk to anyone either. She was a serious boxer. David took her to the district general competitions. Our girls, of course, became animated. They tried to charm him, but to no avail. He's kind of withdrawn, a loner. It's as if he and his daughter don't need anyone at all. He's only friends with Charles. That's the school principal's name. Bachelors, I see, but where did you get your Benjamin? Or is he married? No way. You don't want to mess with a married guy. We've had a couple of such stories. They didn't end well. Benjamin is from the neighboring village, right next door. Children from neighboring villages studied with us. Those who lived nearby were brought by school bus. The children from the distant villages lived in the boarding school. Nancy and Benjamin had known each other since they were in the 1st grade. As Benjamin told Benjamin later, he fell in love with Nancy in the 4th grade. Nancy was a bucket list girl. She liked one boy or the other, and she didn't notice Benjamin until her senior year of high school, but what a true, youthful love it was. Of course, for life, when it is impossible to breathe without each other, they drew a calendar and crossed out the days until their 18th birthday, when they could get married. Their parents were not against it, but they thought it was too early. He'd go into the army, then it was fine. Nancy went to high school. Benjamin went into the army. And city life surrounded Nancy. New impressions, new acquaintances, new love. Nancy got pregnant, and the father-to-be suddenly disappeared. He didn't appreciate the happiness. Nancy cried and came back to her mom. She also cried, said the eternal, "I told you so," hugged her daughter, and began to prepare for the birth of the child. Nancy avoided Benjamin. Ashamed to look him in the eye, she cried at night. She felt so sorry for her first love. It was the end of her love life. There would be no love or family in her life. One joy, red-haired Betty, her mother's happiness. Benjamin turned out to be a one-woman man. Couldn't forget his Nancy. Tried to live without her. Couldn't do it. You know, Miranda? He says he can't live without me. We have to be together. And we've wasted so much time. I don't believe him. How can you forgive betrayal? I chose my destiny. I'm fine, and I don't need anyone. But he keeps coming and coming. Everything's fine, and she's soaked to the skin. She chose her fate. Why don't you ask fate? Maybe she doesn't like your choices. You've been given a chance to get it all back, to be happy. So grab it. Why are you playing the noble game? I can't get anything back. I don't have a chance. Oh, Miranda, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here complaining. What an idiot. Nancy, if you love me, don't be stupid. Now you've made mistakes. Don't make a major one. You won't forgive yourself. Oh, listen, what time is it? Nancy picked up her sleepy daughter. It's a shame to wake her up, but she's so big, I can't carry her. Bye then. I'll see you tomorrow. Nancy, thanks for your help. You're welcome. Miranda's been cleaning and scrubbing the house for a couple more days. She made it shiny and shiny. The house is clean, cozy, livable. It's beautiful. If she could just get the plot sorted out, she'd have an estate, but she can't do it alone. She'll need brute force. Well, we'll do it slowly. Sitting at home all day was boring. Miranda decided it was time to go out and at least go to school. The headmaster of the village school seemed to Miranda like this for some reason. He was not young, obese, with glasses and a tired look, a man tortured by problems, but he turned out to be young and energetic. When Charles found out that he had a certified and experienced English teacher, he was overjoyed. "Miranda, you don't know how we work here, do you? I'm a math teacher. I also teach physics. The chemist teaches biology, geography, and the history teacher teaches English. Do you realize what level of knowledge? We have only German among foreign languages, and there are no other teachers. We study in 2 shifts. It's not because there are too many students and not enough space. It's because there aren't enough teachers. Come on, I'll show you the school." Charles talked about the school only in superlatives, proud. Miranda had not expected that a school in the countryside could be as well equipped as any city school. A chemistry lab, a computer lab, a language class, all on the highest level. Maybe the repairs are simpler, but the atmosphere is somehow homely, cozy here. In the gymnasium, in the far corner, there was a boxing ring. Students were crowding around it. Judging by the emotions and cheers, something very interesting was going on. Miranda didn't understand anything about boxing. She thought it was a muzzle-beating sport. What kind of sport is it, where they hit each other on the head all the time? Charles went to the ring. Miranda preferred to watch from afar. She can't even watch it on TV, much less live. The fight was over in the ring. The athletes took off their helmets, and Miranda was amazed to see a girl who had just waved her fists in the ring. A short, frail, pretty girl of about 15 years old. A tall, strong coach with powerful arms came up to her, hugged the girl, said something, and she nodded and agreed. "David," the director waved to the coach, "come here." "Charles, I have practice." "Your practice can wait, go." What a guy. The principal is on a first-name basis with the students. All right, folks, but there are professional ethics. I mean, a bump on the head doesn't go unnoticed. "Miranda, this is David, the coach. He's got all the boys in the village. He's got the little ones and the ones who've left school." "David, Miranda will be teaching English, I hope." "Hello." Up close, the coach seemed huge. He didn't look at all welcoming. He doesn't care about Miranda or English. A rude bore. At least he could pretend to be pleasant. I'm surprised his children aren't afraid of him. A girl who had just fought in the ring approached them. Charles smiled. "This Kelly, our pride, is district champion and overall medalist. Daddy says she's very capable. She belongs in a big sport. That's my daughter," says David. "I'm sorry. It's probably none of my business, but aren't you scared for your daughter? It's not a woman's sport, is it?" "Yeah, it's none of your business." "Okay, this conversation is over. Time to go. Charles, thanks for the tour. I'll bring my papers tomorrow. Goodbye." Miranda went to the exit of the hall. She heard the principal quietly reprimanding David. "Are you crazy? Why are you being rude? You horny bear. You don't take offense at Daddy." Kelly caught up with Miranda. "You've gone wild with your boxers. You've forgotten how to talk to women. How'd you get settled in here? Would you like some help? I'm afraid Dad wouldn't like that." "No, he won't. He's not mean. He's just unhappy. He needs to come out of his shell and socialize, but he doesn't want to. You don't have anyone here either, do you? Let's be friends. And Dad, I'm sorry. I know he's already talking himself to death. His conscience is killing him. He'll apologize tomorrow. Okay, we'll see. And you, Kelly, come by if you get bored. She's such a sweet girl, and she loves her daddy. I wonder why she called him unhappy. Something terrible must have happened. If a person is so closed in himself, separated from everyone, ostentatious indifference, and deliberate rudeness. Miranda liked the school, the principal. She decided that she would be comfortable in her new place of work. One unpleasant person does not make the weather. She is not interested in boxing. So the trainer can be ignored, communication minimized. She is starting a new life, excitement about the imminent changes. No one can bring her down from her joyful mood, not even such an unpleasant person as David. Miranda caught herself thinking that whatever she was thinking about that boorish coach. That was just the thing. What did she care about him? Miranda brought her diploma and employment history to school, wrote an application, and was hired to Charles' outright glee. Too bad it's the end of the school year, but from September everything will go according to plan. And now there is time to evaluate the equipment of the classroom, to add something, to correct, to prepare the curriculum. I had a lot of enthusiasm, and I stayed at home. Kelly often came to the office, chatting, helping, although Miranda promised not to communicate with David, but we had to see each other. He looked for Kelly after training and often found her in the English room. By the way, for the introduction scene, he apologized, as Kelly said he would. The communication was very concise. Hello, goodbye, how are you? Miranda finally got to work on the plot. It took a long time to gather her courage, telling herself that it was no big deal, that other people could handle it. In full uniform gloves, galoshes with a shovel and hacksaw, went to war on the thickets of cherry trees, up to half a meter high, dug out a little more in no way. They have roots to the center of the earth, or what? Grow. Something dug out, something long and hard sawed. I got tired, sat under the apple tree, upset. There's enough for the whole summer. Kelly found her so tired and frustrated. Miranda, you can't do this alone. You're going to need heavy power. I'll tell my dad. He'll help you. No, that's not a good idea. It's not a bad idea. It's vacation time. School kids don't go to practice. Only adults, and that's 3 times a week. He cooked borscht yesterday. He'll start embroidering cross-stitch soon. It's better to use his bow-gator strength for the intended purpose, and it will be more useful. The next day David came. Miranda felt so embarrassed. He would think she was the kind of woman who looked for an excuse to lure him to a house in the country. Every single woman has tried that. She says something like, I don't need anything. I didn't ask. I can manage on my own. She thought David grinned. Oh, he shouldn't have. The awkwardness was gone. The anger was gone. He'd be grinning. You're only needed here as a tractor. Miranda lifted her chin and with a royal gesture pointed. The shovel is over there. At first Miranda could see David from the window, and she pretended that she was not interested in what he was doing there. But she tried to peep discreetly. No sympathy for this man with a nasty temper, of course, no. But it was impossible to say that he was not handsome. Then David moved to another corner. You couldn't see him from the window. Miranda bent as far as she could. No, I couldn't see him. After 3 hours, Miranda thought she was being indecent. She hired a slave and didn't even offer water. She took a bottle, went behind the house, and was stunned. No thickets, 5 gorgeous cherry trees, and some bushes along the fence. Just a delight. David was tired and asked for water to wash his face. Miranda brought a bucket of water. David took off his shirt and splashed in the bucket. Miranda didn't look, but her eyes somehow squinted in that direction. Nancy came through the wicket. Dan, what bad timing. Whoa. Nancy whispered. What's this about mating games? It's the season. Nancy, what are you talking about? Kelly sent it, and she has a dream and an idea for us to be friends. She's worried sick about Daddy. I'd be worried too if I were you. Daddy's good. He's not good enough to be your girlfriend. I am, but he's not. And tell Kelly that you can't be friends with him. He's not fit for friendship, only for love. Nancy, stop messing with me. What are you doing here? If you're visiting, shall we go inside? No, Miranda, I'm not visiting. I'm here to formally invite you to the wedding. Oh, really? You're such a rule breaker. You've made up your mind. Stop wasting time. We're getting married in a month. Of course, I could have brought the invitation later, but I'm so excited. I wanted to share it with someone. David, are you listening? I'm inviting you to the wedding. Nancy, why him? Miranda whispered so David wouldn't hear. You don't know him at all, do you? It's a whim of mine. I invite whoever I want. Well, I'm off. The groom's waiting. Nancy left. David sat on the porch and Miranda didn't know what to do next. She was grateful, of course. She should probably invite him to dinner. She imagined this lunch, sitting across from each other, chewing and silent. It's perfect. It's like a romantic date. If she doesn't think of something now, he'll leave. Isn't that what she wanted? And now you're looking for a reason to stall. That you liked him or Nancy's example inspired you. You want to get married? Yes, I liked him, that's for sure. Not everyone would go to a woman who shows her disdain as much as she can to dig cherries. And then he's so cute. Miranda hadn't thought of what to say yet. David had already put on his shirt and was about to leave. Kelly saved the day. She flew into the yard and slowed down. Oh, Daddy, I'm glad you're still here. Let's take Miranda to dinner. Miranda, you have no idea how good a cook he is. He also plays the guitar. What at the same time? No, at the same time. Kelly, did you and your dad agree on this? I'm fine with it. All of a sudden, David's coming out. Well, that's it. It's a deal. We'll see you tonight. They left and Miranda was surprised. How lucky that she didn't have to make the first move herself. David and Kelly were walking home and he hissed, You're a smart and beautiful girl, but I think it's time to whip you. Daddy, don't pretend. I can see you like it, Miranda. What would you do without me? Thank you, or you'd be walking in circles for another year. It's too late to whip you. You're 10 years too late. Miranda was going to visit, pulling out almost her entire closet to wear. Isn't that a little flashy? No one will think she's dressing up for him. It's boring. It's unfashionable. Here's a light-colored sundress with little flowers. Modest but tasteful. God, if anyone had told me she'd be dressed up and nervous about meeting a nondescript dork. I have spat in his face. What a way to turn fate around, huh? Dressed up and nervous. Dressed up. I went out. And there's Aunt Clara from behind the fence. Where are you dressed up? You can't go anywhere in this village without supervision. What do you care? Good man, get your hands right. What's the matter? Everybody knows, and she hasn't gotten there yet. The village knows they've got David. They're counting when to get married. Impossible people. It's understandable that we're bored and want colorful events, but not to such an extent. Although let them think, maybe it will come in handy. Dinner was beyond praise. I couldn't believe David made it. Well, how could I not? There's no restaurants around here. You can't order in." Kelly was radiant, talking only about her daddy, how wonderful he was, and what a sports career he had made. The girl really wanted her daddy to be happy. She remembered Mom, remembered what love was like, but Mom was gone. She couldn't allow her daddy to live a lonely and uninhabited life. She liked Miranda very much, and as she noticed, Miranda looked at Daddy with interest. Kelly set herself a goal. We have to get them together. And if the child is up to something, the parents are powerless. David and Miranda had another fight. Everything was fine, talking, joking. It turned out that David is not a bore at all, but a very pleasant person. "Miranda, who told you to say that?" Again, she started talking about boxing not being a sport for girls. It's like stepping on a favorite pet peeve. For so many years, David nurtured in his daughter's fighting qualities, almost brought up a champion, and now some city bimbo, a teacher who knows nothing about professional sports, says that his daughter should give up boxing. Yes, she doesn't embroider cross-stitch, but she can stand up for herself. If someone hurts you, you will cry, but she will fight back. She'll grow up to be a strong athlete. I guess it's my ambition, but I want my daughter to be a champion. If you had kids, you'd understand. It didn't hurt. He doesn't know anything, but it hurt. I finally liked a man, but it's like they're from different universes. They can't understand each other. Miranda was walking home. Kelly followed her. "Kelly, go home. I'm sorry I hurt your daddy again. There's something I want to tell you. I think it's time." David and Emily were a nationally known couple. He's the American champion. Brutal, macho, virile, strong. She's a slim and delicate model whose pictures were everywhere on posters, on TV, on the internet. Emily gave up her career as soon as she found out she was pregnant. No doubt she didn't need all that show business. A house, a husband, and a baby. Nothing more. Kelly's birth was awaited with trepidation. The name was chosen long and carefully, but they did not agree. Emily wanted to name her daughter Camille. She loved the name so much, David insisted on Kelly. When Kelly was born, the parents thought it was a miracle. It was useless to say that they were not the first, they were not the last. Others also have children. Others just have children, but they had a miracle. David wanted his daughter to be called Kelly, so he secretly registered the child and brought the birth certificate, in which the name Kelly was written in black and white for eternity. Emily loved her husband so much that she was not offended and did not say a word against it. Kelly, it's Kelly, no matter what you call it, it is still a miracle extraordinary. Emily took care of the house and the baby. David was lost in training and competitions. He was an American champion 3 times and was going to the World Championships. Kelly was 6 years old when Mommy got sick. She didn't understand what Mom was sick with, but she could see that Mom was in a lot of pain. It is now she knows that Mom had cancer, beyond the operable stage. We tried to treat it, looked for specialists, wrote to foreign clinics. All in vain. The worst was the feeling of hopelessness, the impossibility to change anything. David never left his wife's side. Constant care, medication by the hour. Everyone knew Emily was dying. Tried to keep her with him just a little bit. After his wife died, David withdrew from the World Championships. Kelly was quite small, and trusting her to her relatives was not something he could do. He could not leave her to anyone at all, even for a day, seemed to betray Emily. The sports career was over. The coaching job remained. Kelly everywhere dragged with him, slowly began to train, she liked it, and the ability was. His pupils consistently became medalists in competitions. He was proud of their success. Life settled down. The longing for Emily did not go anywhere, but somehow subsided. But then there was a change of management in the club, and the new director began to hint that medals are good, but money is better. David was not going to mix sport and business. He quit his job and left with his daughter for the country. At least here everything is honest. While Kelly sat in Miranda's kitchen, her dad poured his heart out to Charles. "How was dinner?" "Ah, it's not. Look, it's freaking me out. What kind of woman does everything wrong?" "Well, don't go to her, come on." I can't. She's as annoying as I like." "Then conquer." That's the kind of pithy man talk. Miranda was already timid in front of David, and after what Kelly said, she felt like a complete fool who, knowing nothing about a man, managed to judge. And what's worse than judging? How many times Miranda scolded herself for her language. Miranda tried to see David less often. It wasn't her fault, but it was scary to look him in the eye. But he'd come by, clean the lot, fix the house. Of course we'd see each other. My heart sank, but I didn't have the courage to talk. Who would I ask for advice? Vanessa, of course. It's been a long time since we've gossiped. It's about time. I spilled everything. I didn't hide anything. Vanessa didn't understand what the problem was. Any competitors? Any interested parties? No competitors. You don't like it. I like it too much. My friend, I don't understand you. You went to a remote village. You ran into a prince. What's wrong? The prince's horse is dead, and he can't get there on foot. Do I have to propose myself? No, wait, not yet. I'll come back in a couple weeks. We'll figure out what to do. Charles said conquer. How? The whole plot's been dug up. The fence repaired. The taps and locks are fine. What else is there? And the answer is silence. Everything is decent, polite, and indifferent. It's useless to consult with Charles. He's already openly mocking. David is pouring out his soul to him, and he is looking slyly with the devils jumping in his eyes, and it is obvious that he can hardly contain himself not to laugh at the top of his voice. Charles, do you think it's funny? I'm turning myself inside out in front of him, and he's laughing. Yeah, it's funny. Sitting there, big guy, mumbling, can't tell a woman he likes how he feels. Of course it's funny to you. You got a wife, kids. I want a wife too, by the way. And not just any kind, but a very specific one. You're a Charles, of course, and I'm a boxer. If you laugh now, you risk getting punched in the nose. My friend David, when was the last time you climbed into a woman's window? What's windows got to do with it? It's time to climb. It's not about the windows, it's about the woman. Okay, you're the thin, ironic one. I'm the fat, straightforward one, probably stupid too. I don't understand your parable about the windows. Are you saying I won't fit through? I'm implying that romance is the way to go. Of course you shouldn't go through a window. The result is either a night in the police or a black eye from a frying pan. Flowers to give to in our realities is not an option. What are you there to bring her a daisy or roses, Aunt Clara? There's no movie theaters or restaurants. Look, I never realized we were so bad at romance. We talked a little more about romance, but nothing came up. Charles' wife, Molly, has been listening to the men talk for years. God, how primitive are they? Good that God first created them, and then, looking at his creation, decided to improve and got a woman. When I realized that the men had reached an impasse, I decided to intervene. What flowers? You also invite him to a dance at the club. Let the kids laugh. Buy a ring and go to propose, and if she says no, of course she'll say no. It would be strange if she said yes. Who gets married so suddenly? But she'll think about it, start evaluating the pros and cons. What does that mean? That you, David, will always be on her mind. She can't think of anything else but you. Isn't that what you want? Molly, do you think this is gonna work? It worked for Charles. If it worked, we should go for it. While David was devising a plan to win Miranda over, she had an unexpected visitor. Ethan arrived. Miranda was overjoyed. A family man, Mason's son. A reminder of past happiness. Ethan had come for a specific purpose, to persuade Miranda to return to town. He couldn't shake the guilt. Realized Miranda was in this hellhole because of his mother. Miranda, I've put the apartment up for sale. Half of it is yours. Obviously you can't get the same one, but you're going back to the city. I would never claim my dad's apartment. We've got our own, but Mom's got her heart set on the place. Why are you the centerpiece? I know she can't get back at Dad anymore, so she's taking it out on you. Ethan, why sell? She was going to live there. Didn't she even start renovating it? She started it and she finished it. Her goal was to torment you, and you just left. You ruined her fun. And without you, she doesn't need the apartment. Ethan, I'm not going back to the city. Maybe someday, but not now. You and me, we'll take a walk in the country, you'll understand. It's not a shithole at all. Look, what house? Have you seen the plot? I could use the money from the sale of the apartment. I really want a bathhouse. Ethan, I'm so happy to see you. How did you find me? Vanessa cracked. I can't say, but I thought there was another husband on the way. You bastard, she didn't even give me a hint. Ethan, are you coming over for a couple days, or are you staying with me? Miranda, Dad wants to know if you're coming over for dinner. Kelly was at the door. You have a visitor. I'll go tell her it's dinner for 4. Kelly ran out. Miranda, I think I'll stay over. Yeah, you can stay, sure. But this girl's the neighborhood boxing champion, so be careful. The village has long since realized where this is going. Only these young people can't make up their minds. What can you take from them, city folk? All those who had David in their sights realized they were out of luck, so they crawled away nobly. Of course, I wanted to make a scene. She came here and stole the only decent man, but what's the use? He wasn't too late for their delights without her. But you can tell him you loved him so much, but you let him go be happy. Noble. David couldn't think of anything romantic to do. Everything seemed fine without romance. Ethan's arrival made socializing almost a family affair. Lunches and dinners together. Conversations over tea until almost midnight. Ethan didn't want to leave Kelly, and David was only too happy to do so. Charles and Molly, pushing David. Don't be silent. She may not love you yet, but she's definitely interested. If you don't ask, you won't know. And Miranda had a visitor again. And what a guest. Vanessa is here. Vanessa didn't just come to visit on a rescue mission. She came to help her friend. She's missing. And Vanessa had some exciting news, but she was doing her best to keep quiet. We'd have to help the girlfriend first. Show the prince without the horse. We'll see who we need more, the prince or the horse. After the first dinner together, I decided that the prince was more important. Miranda, he can't take his eyes off you. He's a gorgeous man. I'm not talking about looks. There's nothing to talk about. He's so monumental in the sense of character. Miranda, take a good look. You'll never meet another like him. You know what I'm saying. But for some reason you're stubborn. I'm not stubborn, he's slowing down. Well, it's okay, we'll push. Vanessa, why don't you say something? Ethan said you're getting married. Come on, tell me. Yes, Vanessa was really getting married and assured that there were no mercantile interests in this marriage. Knowing her friend Miranda, I doubted that very much. The fact that she was introduced to her future husband by her ex-husband suggested certain thoughts. If it was the first husband, either an artist or a poet, you could believe that money is out of the question, pure love. But Vanessa's fate was decided by her second husband. There were no people in his entourage who believed in unselfish love. He invited Vanessa to some pathos reception. She didn't refuse. Who would refuse to go out with the powers that be? There Vanessa picked up a handsome young businessman who happened to be single. Now Vanessa did everything to change the man's status to married. Vanessa, besides single, do you know anything about him? Young, handsome, rich. What else is there to know? Well, he's not that young, but do you know he's rich? Or did someone tell you? He's a businessman, so he has money. Anyway, we know for sure he's handsome. Listen, you're a smart woman, and you're not poor, by the way. Did you ever think that you're someone's prey? You can't even tell me what your businessman's business is. Never told me what? Why didn't you ask? You've always been 3 steps ahead. What happened now? I can't believe you've been brainwashed by mad love. I don't know your businessman. I've never seen him. But men his age and with a lot of money don't get lonely. Miranda, what are you saying now? That he's a con man? And Alfonso, I'm afraid. Vanessa, it's just my impression. I don't insist. But take a closer look. Don't get carried away. You've already dived in twice. David kept trying to talk to Miranda. It didn't work. It's easy to advise, don't be silent and say it. Kelly is in the way, Ethan, who won't leave her side. And now Vanessa's added to the mix. Of course, you can find a place and a time, but David didn't. He was afraid. He didn't say anything yet. He hoped she'd say no, then he'd have to crawl away, and then have a live. One night, when Kelly and Ethan had gone to the club and Vanessa had tactfully left, David made up his mind. Miranda, you can see I like you, can't you? You don't have to say anything. If you say you're so nice, but I don't want to hear it. I told you so you'd know. You already knew. Now you know for sure, think, the step is yours. David, I don't know what to say. It's good that you don't know, but I have something to say, or rather ask. Miranda, I need some advice. David was upset with his daughter. He raised an athlete, a champion, and she suddenly said she wanted to be a lawyer. Why all of a sudden? So much effort invested, so much training, so much success. Now it's all for nothing. And she won't listen to anything. I got a job on vacation as an assistant in a law office. I drive every morning to the district. I've been enrolled in preparatory courses since September. I'm determined to go to law school. What do you want? She becomes a champion, then what? Have you ever thought how your daughter will live after graduation, even if she has a brilliant career, without education, without a family, without children? You don't have to say that everything can be combined. You know you can't. Your daughter is wiser than you. Don't stop her. We almost had another fight. We can't have a romantic conversation. Miranda has decided to talk to Kelly. If her decision is firm, Miranda will back her up, and Daddy can't resist too. David couldn't think of anything romantic to do. He suspected that Charles was mocking him, but the idea of climbing through the window came more and more often, but in the sense of romance. Then Nancy and her wedding came to the rescue. David was going to the wedding as if it were his own, even more excited. Newlyweds have nothing to worry about. They're determined, but he had total uncertainty. The wedding was according to all village canons. Neighbors dragged to the house Nancy and pickles, homemade sausage, roasted chickens, compotes in 3 liter jars. The men made a table for half a yard and appropriate benches. Nancy's girlfriends made up riddles for the ransom and contests for the wedding. Miranda was invited, but when she saw the ridiculous, almost over-the-top tasks for the groom, she declined. Wow, so how do you guys do things in the city? We have the internet. We can see, but we don't pout our lips or any other body parts, and we don't change sex. That's embarrassing, and we're just having fun. The wedding was epochal, one village on the bride's side, another on the groom's side. The bride had the tougher village, and the groom had the tougher men. There was no fight. Now the saying, "what wedding without a fight," is irrelevant. The bride was beaming with happiness. The groom shone like a copper basin. Betty lived up to her nickname, Monkey. She grabbed her mom by the hem of her beaufant dress or hung on Benjamin. Contests, jokes, toasts, songs, dances. The people had fun from the heart. Not often in the village happen events of this scale. Now there will be enough talk for a month. They'll be recounting who did what, who said what. The heroes of these stories will say, "It never happened." Maybe it didn't happen. It doesn't matter. In the annals of the village has already been written, and with each retelling will be added new colorful details. They say that if the guests sing a lot at a wedding, the life of the young people will be cheerful and happy. If it works, Nancy and Benjamin will be the happiest people on Miranda, and they'll be laughing all the time. The accordion player, Kevin, played all evening with a break for a drink. The people demanded songs. They sang the most heartfelt ones. Because Kevin did not have time to snack, in 3 hours we were left without accordion. The young people rejoiced they could finally turn on some normal music. They, of course, turned on, but after 10 minutes parents demanded to turn off this nonsense and turn on something soulful that for them soulful guys did not know, so they turned on Disco 80s. They got it right. Even those who had never gotten out of a chair went dancing. David walked up to Miranda, extended his hand. Miranda put her hand on David's shoulder. They danced. David thought, this is it. Romance. Miranda's heart sank. She wanted to say her love, but it seemed like a man should be the first to say it. He didn't talk about love, but he said he'd take a step after her. No, I can't take that step. Why don't you say something, you big guy with no sense? The wedding was in full swing, singing and dancing, and Miranda suddenly remembered her and Mason's wedding. She remembered it without longing, without hopelessness, with sadness, sorrow, and gratitude. For the first time since Mason's death, thinking of him was just a bright memory. But the tears did come so as not to ruin people's holiday. Miranda got up from the table, walked out of the courtyard, and walked towards the river. She didn't want to part with her thoughts about Mason. The stinging sadness was no longer painful. Miranda felt like Mason was letting her go. She said to move on, be happy. Don't rush back to me, I'll wait. David went after Miranda, but Vanessa stopped him. Don't. Let her be alone. She's saying goodbye to her past. Don't interfere. David didn't let her go, but followed her. She understood. Miranda won't go back to the city. This is her destiny. She's a little stubborn, but she's not going anywhere from this man who's not much of a talker, so reliable. Oh, why can't she have any luck? It's always some fake prince. She wants love so badly. I guess to be loved, you have to love yourself. Fate is like a boomerang. It gives you what you put into the world. Miranda knows how to love, but she keeps calculating and guessing. I guess she miscalculated. Well, we're young and beautiful. We'll have time for that. Vanessa found Miranda. She was sitting on the bank, looking at the slow river, sat down next to her and hugged her. Don't be sad, my friend. Tell me, are you going to come back? Not right now. The school year has just started, and I can't leave everything. It's a bit scary, of course, how I'll live here in winter. But the others live. They won't let me go. Of course they won't, especially one of them, the big one. Vanessa laughed. It's so funny to look at you, just a beauty and a monster. The beast is very handsome, though, and he keeps his eyes on you. Miranda, what more do you want? You can't get Mason back, and David loves you. Why do you get such great men? Why am I any worse? You're a little hasty with the getting. Vanessa, what am I supposed to do? I like David. Kelly wants to get her daddy settled. She's doing everything she can to push him. Ethan's here for 2 days, but he's been here for 2 weeks. It makes sense. Kelly likes him, but I don't understand. Vanessa, I can't tell him I love him myself. He's healthy, strong. He's not afraid of anyone but me. Nothing, you'll get through the winter, and then we'll see. I'll go home tomorrow. I came to save you, but I don't seem to have anyone to save you from. I'm going to deal with my businessmen and my ex-husband at the same time. What a bastard, taking revenge by planting a con man. Well, I'm going to get out of your way. There's a David standing behind the bushes. It's getting dark. A huge moon hung in the still bright sky. The river was murmuring. One could hear the wedding singing, smelling of hay, flowers, and water. It's good here. David came over. Shall I sit with you? Of course, David. I know it's none of my business, but why didn't you get married again? It's hard to be alone with a baby. No, it's not. It would have been worse without Kelly. She saved me. I didn't get married because I was waiting for you. Miranda, why don't you stop beating around the bush? You see how I feel about you. If you can't see it, ask the village. They saw it all long ago. They sat side by side and looked at the river. Each of them was thinking about something else. David glanced at Miranda, though he wanted to look at her without stopping. He thought that fate had given him a chance to be happy again, had sent him this woman. But he can't decide to accept this gift. Fate might take offense. Why not just hug her, kiss her, tell her how much he loves her? On Molly's advice, he even bought a ring. Maybe it's silly, but if you don't have any ideas of your own, someone else's will do. Miranda thought about how you can't step into the same river twice. She was already happy, and the way she loved Mason, she couldn't love him anymore. And you don't have to do it the same way. You have to do it differently, with the experience of troubles and mistakes. Vanessa's right. She's really lucky to have the best men. Fate has kept her from making mistakes. They say fate chooses. No, it doesn't. It gives you a chance not to make a mistake. Miranda didn't make a mistake. She won't forget Mason. Just like David will never forget his wife. They even share the same fate, the same grief. Then happiness must be shared. It should be, but if David keeps quiet, that shared happiness may never happen. Come on, David, say something. David didn't say something. David did. He hugged Miranda, kissed her, and pulled a ring box out of his pocket. Miranda, will you marry me? Miranda was confused. There was such a look of bewilderment on her face that David laughed. It was exactly the reaction I had expected. That's what Molly said. Molly who? Charles. She said you'd say no, but you'd think about it, or not say no. I know it's the height of levity to think you'll say yes right away, but will you take the ring? You'll look at it and think of me. You will, won't you? About what? Who, me? Miranda smiled enigmatically and clung to David, thinking to herself that she was already thinking about him.